This is based on my own experience, and I'm only telling it now because I see too many guys my age making the exact same mistakes I did. If this stops even one person from losing everything like I did, then maybe it was all worth something. My name is Matthew Chen, and I'm 58 years old. 2 years ago, I was sitting pretty in Portland, Oregon, with an $800,000 retirement fund, a paid-off house, and what I thought was my whole life figured out. Today, I'm living in a studio apartment in Chiang Mai, working part-time online jobs, and trying to rebuild from almost nothing. The woman who changed everything was named Panita. She was 24, beautiful, and I thought she loved me. I was wrong about a lot of things. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I always love seeing that. And if you've been enjoying these stories and want to give a little nod of support, there's a super thanks button right below the video. It helps more than you'd think, and yeah, I truly appreciate it. Let me back up to where this really started. December 2022, sitting in my empty 4-bedroom house in Portland after the divorce papers were finally signed. 30 years of marriage gone. Kids grown up and moved across the country. Susan got the house. Fair enough. She deserved it after putting up with my workaholic software engineer lifestyle for 3 decades. The loneliness hit me like a freight train. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., same as always, but instead of rushing to my home office, I'd just sit there in the dark wondering what the hell I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. I was 56, financially secure, but felt completely dead inside. That's when I started watching YouTube videos about expat life in Thailand. You know the ones, living like a king on $1,000 a month, why I'll never move back to America. All that stuff. The more I watched, the more appealing it seemed. Warm weather, year-round, friendly people, everything cheap, and adventures around every corner. I wasn't some naive kid. I'd been successful in tech for decades. I'd traveled for work, lived in different cities, considered myself worldly, but sitting alone in that empty house, Thailand started looking like salvation. I booked a 3-week trip to Phuket in February 2023. The plan was simple. See if I could handle living there, maybe rent a place for a few months if I liked it. The moment I stepped off that plane at Phuket International, I felt more alive than I had in years. The humidity hit me like a warm embrace. The chaos of tuk-tuks and taxi drivers actually felt exciting instead of overwhelming. Everything was bright, colorful, intense. I stayed at a decent hotel in Patong, nothing fancy but clean and well located. The first few days were pure culture shock in the best way. Street food that made my taste buds sing, beaches that looked like postcards, and prices that made my Portland-adjusted brain do double takes. But it was the nightlife that really opened my eyes. I'm not proud of this, but after months of sitting alone in my empty house, the attention from young Thai women felt like a drug. I know how that sounds, but understand, I hadn't felt desired or interesting to anyone in years. The first bar I walked into was called Lucky Stars on Bangla Road. Neon lights, loud music, and maybe 30 Thai women in short dresses who all seemed genuinely happy to see me. I bought drinks, practiced my terrible Thai, and for the first time since the divorce, I felt like I mattered. I met other Western guys there, expats who'd been living in Thailand for years. They all had stories, advice, warnings about bar girls and scams. I listened, nodded, and thought I was too smart to fall for any of that nonsense. That's where Panita comes in. I met her on my 8th night in Phuket at a smaller bar called Sapphire near the end of Bangla Road. She wasn't like the others, quieter, more reserved, better English. While other girls were grabbing customers and asking for drinks, Panita was sitting alone at the bar reading something on her phone. I approached her because she seemed different. When I said hello, she looked up with these incredible dark eyes and smiled. But it wasn't the practice smile I'd been seeing everywhere else. It was shy, almost surprised. "You're American?" she asked in clear English. "Yeah, from Portland. You speak English really well," she laughed. "I study at university before I come here, English literature, but my family need money, so..." She shrugged, but I could see the shame in her eyes. We talked for 2 hours. Her name was Panita. She was 24, from a small farming village in Aizen province. She'd been working in Phuket for 3 years, sending money home to support her parents and younger brother. She told me about her dreams of opening a small restaurant, maybe teaching English to Thai kids. I found myself hanging on every word. Here was a woman with depth, intelligence, real dreams. She asked about my life in America, my work, my family. When I mentioned the divorce, she put her hand on mine and said, "I'm sorry. That must be very hard." I don't think anyone had shown me that kind of genuine sympathy in months. What was supposed to be my last week in Phuket turned into 3 more weeks. I couldn't leave, not because of the beaches or the weather, because of Panita. We started spending days together, not just nights at the bar. I'd pick her up in the morning, and we'd go to markets, temples, local restaurants she recommended. She showed me a side of Phuket tourists never see: the quiet neighborhoods, the local food stalls, the morning markets where vendors knew her by name. I bought her things, nothing crazy expensive, but an iPhone to replace her cracked old phone, some nice clothes, jewelry that made her eyes light up. She was always grateful, sometimes to the point of tears. "Matthew, you're too kind to me," she'd say. "I don't deserve this." But that's exactly why I thought she did deserve it. She wasn't asking for anything, wasn't pushing for expensive gifts or money. She seemed genuinely shocked by my generosity. She told me about her family, rice farmers who'd struggled through droughts and crop failures. Her younger brother was smart, wanted to go to university, but they couldn't afford it. Her parents were getting older, needed medical care they couldn't pay for. I video called with her family one evening. Her parents were exactly as she'd described: weathered, humble, genuinely grateful when I said I was taking care of their daughter. Her brother was sharp, eager to practice his English with me. On my last night, lying in my hotel bed with Panita curled up beside me, she whispered, "I think I love you, Matthew." I'd been divorced for less than a year, but I said it back. And I meant it. 2 months later, I was back in Portland, but I couldn't focus on anything except getting back to Thailand. Panita and I talked every day. Video calls, text messages, photos of her daily life. She'd send me pictures of sunsets from the beach, the food she was eating, the bar where she still worked. During one of our calls, she seemed upset. When I pressed her, she opened up about her dream of opening a restaurant. "I found perfect place," she said, showing me photos on her phone. It was a small storefront near Kata Beach, about 20 minutes from Patong. Owner want to sell but need 2.5 million baht. I save money for 3 years, but only have 800,000 baht. I did the math in my head. 2.5 million baht was about $75,000. Plus renovation costs, equipment, permits, maybe $100,000 total. "I know is too much money," she said quickly. I dream about it. Having my own business, not working in bar anymore. Maybe teach cooking classes for tourists." She'd thought it through. She had a business plan, knew about permits and regulations, had even identified suppliers. This wasn't some fantasy. It was a real opportunity. "What if I helped?" I asked. Her eyes went wide. "Matthew, no, is too much. I cannot ask you for this." "You're not asking. I'm offering." The truth was, I'd been thinking about moving to Thailand permanently anyway. My Portland house was too big, too empty. I could sell it, take my retirement fund, and start fresh in Thailand. Having a business there would give me purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. "We could be partners," I said. "I provide the capital, you provide the expertise. You know the local market, the suppliers, the customers." She started crying. "You would really do this for me?" Of course I would. I was in love. I put my Portland house on the market in June 2023. While waiting for it to sell, I flew back to Thailand and spent a month looking at the restaurant space with Panita. It was perfect, small but well located, with a view of the ocean and foot traffic from the nearby hotels. The current owner was a Thai man named Somchai, who seemed eager to sell. He'd run a small seafood restaurant there for years, but wanted to retire. Panita translated everything, handled the negotiations, even found a lawyer to help with the paperwork. I was impressed by how businesslike she was. This wasn't the shy bar girl I'd met. This was an entrepreneur with vision and drive. My Portland house sold in August for $650,000. After paying off the small remaining mortgage and real estate fees, I had about $558,000 in cash. Combined with my retirement accounts, I was sitting on just over $800,000. I transferred $120,000 to Thailand minus $80,000 for the restaurant purchase and renovations, $40,000 for living expenses and getting established. It seemed like a reasonable investment in our future. Panita and I found a nice 2-bedroom condo in Kata, walking distance from the restaurant. Nothing fancy, but clean and modern with a view of the hills. She moved in with me, and for the first time since my divorce, I felt like I had a real home again. The restaurant renovation took 3 months. Panita managed everything: contractors, permits, equipment purchases. She had a gift for it, negotiating with suppliers in rapid-fire Thai, making sure everything was done right. We opened Panita's Kitchen in November 2023. The grand opening was everything I dreamed of. Local officials, expat customers, Thai families from the neighborhood. Panita's parents came down from Eisen for the opening, and watching her father's pride as he saw his daughter's restaurant for the first time was one of the happiest moments of my life. For 6 months, life was perfect. I'd wake up with Panita beside me, walk to the restaurant for breakfast, spend the day helping with small tasks while she ran the kitchen. Evenings, we'd sit on the beach watching sunset, planning our future together. I started studying Thai seriously, taking classes 3 times a week. Panita helped me practice, laughing at my pronunciation but always encouraging. I felt like I was becoming part of the community, not just another tourist. The first sign something was wrong came in March 2024. I was looking at the restaurant's books, trying to understand why we weren't making the profit margins Panita had projected. The numbers didn't add up. We were serving maybe 60 customers a day, good reviews on TripAdvisor, but somehow barely breaking even. When I asked Panita about it, she said costs were higher than expected: food prices, utilities, staff wages. "Don't worry about money," she said. "We build customer base first, profit comes later." She was working longer hours, often staying at the restaurant until midnight for cleaning and prep. When I offered to help, she said it was better if she handled it. She knew the Thai way of doing things. Around the same time, I noticed she was getting phone calls at odd hours. She'd step outside to take them, speaking in rapid Thai. When I asked who was calling, she'd say it was suppliers, or her parents, or restaurant business. I wanted to trust her, but something felt off. We'd been so close during our first months together, but now she seemed distant, distracted. Our conversations became shorter, less intimate. One night I found a second phone in her purse. When I asked about it, she said it was for the restaurant business, separate from her personal phone. "Why do you need 2 phones?" I asked. "Thai business is complicated," she said. "Some suppliers only use Line, some use WhatsApp. Is easier to keep separate." It made sense, but it still bothered me. I'd been completely transparent with her about everything: my finances, my plans, my feelings, but I was starting to realize how little I actually knew about her daily life. The truth started coming out in pieces. First, I discovered that Panita had been sending money to her family every month, not just her restaurant salary, but large amounts. $2,000 in February, $3,000 in March, $1,500 in April. When I confronted her, she broke down crying. Her mother was sick, needed expensive treatment. Her brother's university fees were due. Her father had borrowed money from loan sharks and was being threatened. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," she said. "I didn't want you to worry." I wanted to believe her, but I also wanted to verify. I asked to video call her parents to see how her mother was doing. Panita said her mother was too sick to talk, but she'd try to arrange it later. The call never happened. I started paying closer attention to the restaurant's finances. Money was disappearing, Not just the legitimate expenses, but unexplained cash withdrawals, payments to suppliers I'd never heard of, wages for staff who didn't seem to exist. When I asked Panita about specific transactions, she always had explanations. Thai bureaucracy required cash payments. Suppliers demanded payment in advance. Staff had to be paid under the table to avoid taxes. But the explanations were getting more elaborate, more convoluted, and they always involved aspects of Thai business culture that I, as a foreigner, couldn't possibly understand. Then came the day that changed everything. I was walking through Patong, running errands, when I saw Panita's motorbike parked outside a hotel I didn't recognize. It was definitely hers, same license plate, same Hello Kitty sticker on the side. I waited across the street, feeling sick to my stomach. After an hour, Panita came out of the hotel with a Thai man I'd never seen before. They were holding hands, laughing, completely comfortable with each other. I followed them to a restaurant where they had lunch together. They looked like a couple, the easy intimacy, the way she fed him from her plate, the way he put his arm around her shoulders. That evening, when Panita came home, I asked her where she'd been. At restaurant? All day? She said without hesitation. Very busy lunch, then prep for dinner. I showed her the photos I'd taken. Her face went white. Matthew, I can explain. But there was no explanation that could make sense of what I'd seen. The Thai man was her boyfriend. Had been her boyfriend for 2 years, since before she met me. She'd never broken up with him. In fact, she was planning to marry him. The money I'd been giving her, the money from the restaurant, wasn't going to her sick family. It was going to buy a house in Bangkok where she and her boyfriend planned to live together. The next morning, Panita was gone. She'd taken her clothes, her motorbike, and what turned out to be about $30,000 in cash from the restaurant's account. I went to the police, but they weren't much help. Panita hadn't technically stolen anything. She was a co-owner of the restaurant, had legal access to the accounts. The personal money I'd given her for her family was just that, personal gifts with no legal strings attached. I tried to keep the restaurant running, but without Panita's connections with suppliers and staff, it fell apart quickly. The Thai employees quit when they realized she wasn't coming back. The suppliers demanded payment in advance, cash only. The permits and licenses were all in Panita's name. Within a month, I had to close Panita's kitchen. The landlord kept the deposit, claiming damages. The equipment was worthless, used restaurant gear in a tourist area where dozens of businesses fail every year. I started talking to other expats, and that's when I learned the most devastating truth of all. Panita was known in the community. She'd done this before, at least 3 times that people knew about. There was a German guy in 2019, an Australian in 2021, a Canadian just 6 months before she met me. The restaurant business was her specialty. She'd find a lonely foreign man, build a relationship, propose the restaurant partnership, then disappear with whatever money she could access. The Thai boyfriend was her accomplice. They'd been running this scam for years. I wasn't special. I wasn't different. I was just another lonely foreign man who confused loneliness with love and generosity with partnership. 2 years later, I'm sitting in a small apartment in Chiang Mai writing this story. I lost about $230,000 total. The restaurant investment, the money I gave Panita for her family, the failed business, and legal fees trying to recover what I could. I'm not completely broke. I still have about $400,000 left from my retirement fund, and I've been able to pick up some freelance software consulting work. But I'm 58 years old, starting over in a foreign country, trying to rebuild a life I thought I'd already figured out. The hardest part isn't the money, it's the shame. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have ignored so many red flags? How could I have confused being needed with being loved? But here's what I've learned. Loneliness makes you vulnerable in ways you can't imagine until you experience it. When you're desperate for connection, for purpose, for someone to make you feel valuable again, you'll rationalize almost anything. I wanted to believe Panita's story because it gave my life meaning. I wasn't just some divorced guy spending his retirement fund on a Thai girlfriend. I was a partner, an investor, a man building something meaningful with someone he loved. The truth is, I was all of those things. I just wasn't the only one. I'm still in Thailand, but my life is different now. I have real Thai friends, people I met through language classes, volunteer work, normal activities that don't involve bars or money. I'm dating someone now, a Thai woman my own age, who has her own business, her own life, her own financial security. We're taking things slow. I'm not bitter about Thailand. This country didn't scam me, one person did, with the help of my own desperate need to feel important again. I've met dozens of honest, hard-working Thai people who are just trying to build good lives for themselves and their families. But I am bitter about the men who know these scams exist and don't warn newcomers. The expats who sit in bars laughing about stupid farangs who fall for bar girl tricks, but never speak up when they see it happening. That's why I'm telling this story. Not for sympathy, not to blame anyone else for my choices, but to warn other men who might be in the same vulnerable place I was 2 years ago. If you're recently divorced, lonely, and thinking about starting over in Thailand, that's fine. Thailand is an incredible place to live. But be honest about why you're here and what you're looking for. Don't confuse being needed with being loved. Don't confuse financial dependence with partnership. And if a young Thai woman you've just met starts talking about business opportunities, ask yourself, would you invest your retirement fund in a business partnership with someone you've known for 2 months in your home country? The answer should be no, regardless of how beautiful she is or how much you think you love her.